I adore my wife so much that when she was away on a business trip, our kids and I decided to surprise her by flying out to see her. But soon enough, I realized that some surprises end up being sweet for only one side. The idea hit me like a bolt of lightning during breakfast. Madison was teasing her cereal while Tyler was already half absent, lost in some game on his phone. Jessica had been away for 3 days, with another 4 to go, totaling 7, which was far too long. "What if we went to see Mom?" I suggested as I set my coffee down. Madison's eyes went wide. "Just show up?" "Absolutely. We can book a flight today and be there tonight." Even Tyler, at 13, looked up from his phone with genuine excitement. I took that as my cue and ran with the plan. We booked our flights that very day and planned to arrive tonight. Imagine the look on her face. When Tyler finally glanced up, his excitement was unmistakable, which, coming from a teenager, meant a lot. I embraced the idea completely. Within hours, we were packed and tickets were in hand. The excitement in the air crackled like static electricity. I could already picture Jessica swinging open her hotel room door, gasping in shock before pulling us into a long-missed hug, maybe even shedding tears. Yet, something niggled at me. Jessica hadn't answered my call that morning. No answer. That struck me as odd, so I texted her, "Hey, hope we're going okay. I just wanted to hear your voice." Still nothing. An hour later, I got a message from the kids. "Miss you, call when you can." Nothing. A little unsettling, but I chalked it up to the usual hectic pace of a business trip. We landed in Chicago that evening. The city hit us with its classic energy, honking horns, flashing lights, and that crisp downtown aroma. The kids were buzzing with anticipation as I rented a car, loaded them in, and punched in the hotel address on the GPS. My pulse started to race. I'd sworn I wouldn't call Jessica before arriving. I wanted it to be a genuine surprise. I stuck to my plan until something inside me began to itch with anxiety. I dialed her number, but there was only voicemail. I checked the time, 9:43 p.m. Not too late. Maybe she was busy or had already turned in. Just 5 minutes before the hotel, I tried again, straight to voicemail. That unsettling feeling only deepened. Meanwhile, Tyler and Madison were laughing in the back seat, completely unaware of how tightly my hand gripped the steering wheel. When we finally pulled up at the hotel entrance, my heart pounded for no clear reason. I told the kids to wait in the lobby while I went in to grab our room keys. "We're going to surprise her, right?" Madison asked, practically bouncing with excitement. "Absolutely," I replied, though my voice was tight. I approached the check-in desk with a forced smile and said, "My wife, Jessica Carter, is staying here. I'm planning a surprise. Could you tell me her room number?" The receptionist smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't disclose guest room numbers." "Of course," I replied as I slid my credit card over. "Could you at least call her and let her know her husband has arrived?" She nodded, picked up the phone, and I watched as she dialed. After a brief pause, her expression shifted. "Oh," she murmured, her eyes briefly meeting mine. "She's not answering." My stomach twisted. "Maybe she's asleep?" I offered, though I wasn't convinced. The receptionist hesitated, then glanced at her computer screen. "It says here she checked in with a +1. "+1?" I repeated, my voice strangely even, as if coming from someone else. She blinked. "Yes, the room is under her name, but there's an additional guest listed. I assumed you knew. You still here? Stunt." And then I just laughed. A short, incredulous laugh. Because what else can you do when you realize that the woman who is the mother of your children, the very person you flew across the country to surprise, has booked a romantic hotel stay with someone else? My laugh must have unsettled the receptionist because she suddenly looked nervous. I wasn't even angry yet. I was in that eerie calm before the storm. "Sir," she asked cautiously, "who is the +1? I try to keep my voice level. "Who exactly is the +1? I pressed. She hesitated. "I'm not at liberty to disclose that information." I exhaled slowly. "All right, then I'll need a room." Her fingers danced over the keyboard. I could tell she was avoiding eye contact, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. A minute later, she handed me a new room key. It was on the same floor as Jessica's room, just a few doors away. Perfect. I returned to the lobby, forcing a smile so as not to alarm the kids. We're all set, I announced. Let's drop our stuff off first. Madison practically skipped alongside me. Can we see Mommy right away? She pleaded. Soon, I promised. We took the elevator up. Tyler was still glued to his phone, and Madison hummed a cartoon-themed song. They had no idea. Our room was clean and unremarkable, but I barely noticed it. I told the kids to get comfortable and order whatever they liked from room service. Then I headed down the hall. Jessica's room was just 4 doors away. I walked slowly, my pulse thundering in my ears, wondering what I was about to face. A work friend crashing in her room, a perfectly innocent explanation, or something else entirely. I reached her door. Room 814. Room 814. My hand hesitated on the knob for a second before I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time, but still nothing. I was sure she was inside. I could feel it. I pulled out my phone and texted her, "Hey, I'm at your hotel. Please open the door." It showed as read, but no reply came. My jaw clenched painfully. Before I could overthink it any further, I turned on my heel and marched back downstairs. The receptionist looked surprised to see me again. "Hey," I said, sliding my room key across the counter. "I got locked out. Could I have a new key?" She nodded and began tapping on her keyboard. After a moment, I added casually, "Oh, and could you link my wife's room to my key? We always do that when she travels, just in case." I forced a smile that belied the turmoil I felt, as if I weren't on the brink of shattering our entire marriage. The receptionist hesitated, then beeped. She swiped my card, tapped a few more keys, and handed it back. "All set," she said. "Thanks," I replied. Then I headed back upstairs to see for myself. My feet felt numb as I approached Jessica's room, the key card almost burning a hole in my palm. My pulse wasn't just pounding, it was roaring in my ears. That roar was like a primal warning. This was it. I reached room 814 and exhaled slowly. If I was wrong, I'd look like a complete fool. If I was right, I tried not to dwell on that thought. I slid the key card in. The green light blinked with a beep and turned the handle, pushing the door open. The first thing that struck me was a strong smell, a mix of cologne, sweat, and something else I couldn't quite place. An odor that clearly didn't belong in a room where my wife was meant to be alone. The room was dimly lit, with only the bedside lamp casting a soft glow. And there, tangled in the pristine white sheets, were Jessica and some man. I didn't even register the stranger's face at first. I was too transfixed on my wife, the mother of my children, lying there in nothing but a sheet barely covering her. When her eyes met mine, for a split second, I saw something terrifying in them. Not guilt, not shame, but irritation, as though I were the problem, as though my very presence was an inconvenience. Then, in an instant, her expression shifted. She gasped and scrambled upright, pulling the sheets up as if I could somehow fix things. "Michael," she stammered, eyes wide. The man beside her stirred groggily, clearly unaware of what was happening. I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. "Who is he?" I asked in an unnervingly calm voice. Jessica glanced between me and the stranger, calculating her next move, and then had the nerve to say, "Michael, this isn't what it appears to be." I let out a harsh, humorless laugh, a laugh that finally snapped the man in bed to full awareness. He blinked up at me, confused, and then his face drained of color. "Good," I said, turning my gaze back to my wife. "Really? Because it looks like you're naked in a hotel room with another man." Jessica swallowed hard. I can explain," she stammered, crossing her arms. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, then tried again before sighing and rubbing her temples as if I were giving her a headache. Michael, you're overreacting, she said firmly. It's not a big deal, really not a big deal. I felt something inside me shatter. The man, the guy in the bed, who finally seemed to realize what was going on, started pulling on his pants and cleared his throat. Maybe I should sit down. I growled, cutting him off. Jessica rolled her eyes. This is so typical, she muttered under her breath. You always blow things out of proportion. I stared at her in disbelief. Jessica, I said slowly, I flew here with our kids to surprise you. Madison and Tyler are just down the hall, thinking you're busy on a business trip. For a split second, she flinched at that, and then her expression hardened once more. Michael, don't you understand? I demanded. No, I think I do, she shot back. A heavy silence stretched between us until finally the man spoke up. Look, man, he said, raising his hands. I had no idea she was married. Jessica abruptly turned to him. Connor, shut up. But the damage was already done. I offered a slow, cold smile. So, Connor, you assumed she was single? He swallowed hard. Yeah, I mean, she never mentioned having a husband or kids. Jessica's face went pale. I turned back to her, my jaw tightening. Wow, no mention of us at all. Huh? She opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. You know what, Jessica? My voice dropped to a dangerously quiet tone. You're right, I don't understand. I stepped closer. Then why don't you explain? Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time since I'd walked in, she looked trapped, her eyes darting to Connor, then back to me, then down to the floor, as if trying to rewrite reality in her favor. I let the silence linger, wanting her to feel the full weight of her choices, to sit in the chaos she'd created. Finally, she whispered, Michael, please, this isn't what you think. I let out a low, dangerous laugh. Oh, because I think my wife is having a full-blown affair in a hotel room while I'm here raising our kids at home? That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Her lips trembled, and then she did something that nearly broke me. She softened her voice, tilted her head slightly, and reached for me as if I were the unreasonable one. Michael, I made a mistake, she said, her fingers brushing against my wrist. But it's not what you think. Connor shifted uncomfortably. He looked awkward. Jessica, I think I should probably go. Shut up, Connor, she snapped, whipping her head toward him so sharply that even I flinched. I watched her, noticed the tension in her body, the way she gritted her teeth. There was no shame there, only anger at being caught. I took a step back and said, You know what? Just tell me the truth, Jessica. Just once. How long has this been going on? She hesitated ever so slightly, but that fraction of a pause was enough. Connor exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. Oh, expletive me, he muttered under his breath. That long, huh? I said, watching her intently. She snapped. Why does it matter? Then she burst out. Michael, seriously, why are you turning this into some monumental betrayal? A cold chill ran through me. Monumental betrayal? I repeated hollowly. Jessica groaned and ran her hand through her hair, as if I were the one being unreasonable. Michael, you're an amazing dad, you're a good husband, and you work so hard, but I just needed, she began, then stopped and squeezed her eyes shut. I took a slow, deliberate step forward. Say it, I urged. When she couldn't, I pressed on. You needed something else. She winced, but didn't deny it. I drew in a deep breath, trying to control the fire rising in my throat. Jessica, our kids are just down the hall right now. Madison was so excited to see you. She couldn't stop bouncing during the flight, and Tyler, Jesus, Tyler even put his phone down for more than 10 seconds just to come surprise you. She looked away. You weren't supposed to come, she muttered. My stomach dropped, and I let out a choked, disbelieving laugh. Oh my God, you plan to get away with it? You thought you could just come home, kiss our kids goodnight, and slip back into our bed like nothing happened? She flinched, and then, as if possessed, she lifted her chin and said the worst thing she could. You should have told me you were coming. The room tilted. Connor mumbled something under his breath as he grabbed his bag. "Yeah, I'm out." He bolted for the door like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. I didn't even watch him leave because my entire world had just shifted on its axis. "Are you?" My voice cracked. I swallowed hard. "Are you saying this is my fault?" she asked, crossing her arms with an unreadable expression. "I'm saying that if you'd told me, none of this would have happened." Something inside me broke. I took a slow, trembling breath, tried to keep my composure. "Jessica, this didn't happen because I showed up. It happened because you made a choice." She scoffed. "Oh, please." As if you haven't been emotionally checked out for years. That hit me hard. I stepped back. "What the hell are you talking about?" I demanded. She rolled her eyes repeatedly. "Michael, don't act like you're perfect," she said, as if we were arguing about something trivial like forgetting to take out the trash. "You barely even look at me anymore. You're always working, always with the kids and me." She exhaled sharply. I just needed to feel desired, to feel like a woman again. I stared at her, waiting for some hint of regret or realization. But she just stood there, her face as cold and immovable as stone, as if I were supposed to simply accept it without question. And that's when I knew there was nothing left to save. Something inside me shattered. Not with an explosive burst that made me want to yell or throw something or punch a hole through the wall, but in a quiet, eerie way that left me feeling numb, as if my soul had turned to ice. I looked at my wife, the woman with whom I'd built a life and raised our children, and I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was simply bored. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself before the inevitable confrontation. I knew I was about to win. I said, "Okay." Jessica blinked. "Okay, what?" I repeated, tilting my head. "I get it now." She shifted her weight and crossed her arms more tightly. "Michael, don't be so dramatic. You're not in love with me anymore," I interrupted. Her lips parted, and I took a slow step forward. "You haven't been in love with me for a long time, have you?" Jessica's jaw tightened. "That's not just an answer. It's the truth. Just answer the damn question," I demanded. She hesitated. Then, with a casual shrug that made my skin crawl, she said, "I don't know." I actually laughed. What else was there to do? "Wow," I murmured, running a hand down my face. "You don't know." Her expression turned annoyed, as if I were dragging this on too long. "Michael, I didn't plan for any of this to happen," she said, as if that made everything okay. I needed to feel desired." "You stay out here." "You think I don't want you," she countered, rolling her eyes, not in the loving way of old, but as though she were looking at a stranger in a hotel bed. "That's not fair," I snapped. "Fair?" My voice is thunderous right now. "Oh, I'm sorry, Jessica. Is this really too much to ask? Is this situation not fair to you? Is it that hard?" She retorted, turning her gaze away. "You want to feel like a woman again?" I scoffed. "Try feeling like a husband who just found out his wife has been sneaking off to hotel rooms with random men while his kids cry out for her attention at home." She exhaled slowly, pressing her fingers to her temples as if I were giving her a headache. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't really listening. She wasn't processing any of it. She was just waiting for me to shut up. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who used to cry during sad movies, who used to slip little notes into my lunchbox before work, who used to laugh so hard she couldn't breathe when Tyler told his silly jokes at dinner. She wasn't that person anymore. Or maybe she was, and I simply no longer mattered. Either way, I was done. I turned toward the door. Jessica stiffened. "Where are you going?" I paused and glanced over my shoulder at our kids. The ones you apparently forgot existed while you were busy chasing that feeling of being a woman again. Her face twisted into something ugly. "Don't be dramatic, Michael," she said. I let out a quiet laugh. "You haven't seen dramatic yet." Then I walked out the door, leaving her standing amid the wreckage of everything she'd destroyed. I trudged down the hotel hallway, my legs moving as though they weren't my own, my body weighed down like someone had tied bricks to my shoulders. But my mind screamed at me to keep going, because just down the hall in room 810, my kids were waiting. Madison was probably sitting cross-legged on the bed, giggling at some cartoon, still bubbling with excitement over the surprise we'd planned, while Tyler was likely halfway through a burger he ordered from room service, already texting his friends about how cool Chicago is. They had no idea, absolutely no idea, that their mother had just torn our family in half in a dimly lit hotel room with some guy named Connor. They had no clue that the father who walked out that door was no longer the same man. I stopped in front of our door, room 810, just 4 rooms down from hers, knowing that their mother was probably still sitting there, lying in bed. She ran her fingers through her hair, clearly annoyed at me, not remorseful or heartbroken, just plainly irritated. I clenched my jaw so tightly it hurt. Finally, I swiped the key card. With a beep and a flash of green light, the door opened. I barely had time to step inside before Madison came flying at me. "Daddy, did you see her?" she squealed, hugging my waist. Was she so happy? Did she cry? A lump in my throat nearly choked me, but I forced a smile and swallowed the bitter taste rising inside. "Not yet, baby," I murmured, running my hand through her soft curls. She was too busy to notice. She'd get her answer in the morning. Tyler was sprawled on his bed with one arm behind his head, half watching TV. "So, what's the plan?" he asked, casually popping a fry into his mouth. My mind went blank. Plan? There was no plan anymore. I was standing here pretending everything was fine while their mom was probably scrambling for excuses just a few doors away. "I need to get you both out of here," I said. "How about we do something fun?" Suddenly, I forced my voice into a light, almost normal tone. "Maybe we can grab some ice cream and take a walk around the city before bed?" Madison gasped as if I'd just told her she'd won the lottery. Tyler raised an eyebrow, but merely shrugged. "Yeah, sure, why not?" I grabbed my wallet and slipped it into my jacket. "Let's go," I said, glancing around the room. The place that had felt like a fun family trip only an hour ago, as I made sure to leave everything behind because we weren't coming back. We stepped out of the hotel, and the cool night air hit me like a shock to the system. I needed that jolt because nothing else felt real anymore. Madison squeezed my hand, and together we strolled down the busy Chicago sidewalk. Tyler, earbuds dangling, stuffed his hands into his hoodie pockets and glanced around as if he were genuinely enjoying this rare outing. Meanwhile, I was just trying to breathe, trying to ignore the weight of my phone in my pocket, waiting for the inevitable call or text from her, and trying to push down the burning rage in my gut, pretending everything was normal because they couldn't know. "Not yet. Can I get 2 scoops?" Madison asked while practically skipping beside me. I forced a smile. "Actually, you can have 3. Her entire face lit up. "Best night ever." Tyler snorted. "Dad's in a good mood. We should take advantage before he realizes we're out past bedtime." They had no idea. We soon discovered a small ice cream shop with neon lights glowing against the dark streets. The scent of waffle cones and sugar hit me like a distant memory from a simpler time, when a surprise trip meant joy, not disaster. We ordered. Madison chose rainbow sprinkles, Tyler went for chocolate fudge, and I picked something I wasn't even sure about. I just needed to keep moving, to stop the night from collapsing in on itself. Seated at a little table by the window, for a while it almost felt normal. Madison chattered about school, while Tyler teased her about still coloring outside the lines. I nodded and laughed at all the right moments, taking bites of ice cream that tasted oddly bland. Then my phone buzzed. I recognized the sender before I even looked. "Jessica." My stomach twisted as I pulled it out. One new message read, "Michael, where are you?" I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, then switched the phone off and slid it back into my pocket. She wouldn't get to ask that. Not after what she'd done. "Hey, Dad," Tyler's voice pulled me back. I looked up. "Yeah," he said, narrowing his eyes at me, too sharp for his own good. "Are you okay?" he asked. I hesitated, then finally mustered a genuine smile. "Yeah, buddy." Glancing between him and Madison, I realized that for the first time all night I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about us, about how I was going to get my kids the hell out of here and away from Jessica. That night, by the time we got back to the hotel, I had made up my mind. We weren't staying. I didn't care that our luggage was still in the room or that we'd technically booked the trip for 2 more nights. I was determined to rescue my kids from this mess before it affected them any further. "All right, guys," I said, forcing my voice to sound casual as we stepped into the elevator. "Change of plans. We're heading home tonight." Madison looked puzzled. "But we just got here." Tyler furrowed his brows. "Why? What about Mom?" I exhaled slowly. Something came up. Tyler studied me. He wasn't stupid. He sensed something was off. But Madison was still too young to pick up on the cracks in my voice, and I had to keep it that way. "But Daddy," she whined, lower lip jutting out. "We didn't even get to surprise her yet." I swallowed hard. "I know, baby, but we'll see her when we get home." The elevator dinged at our floor. We stepped out, heading toward our room, determined to keep moving and keep them distracted. But the moment we turned the corner, there she was, Jessica, standing right outside our room with her arms crossed, waiting. Madison's eyes lit up. "Mommy!" she cried as she ran toward her, but I caught her by the shoulders just before she reached her. "Go inside, Maddie," I instructed firmly. "Tyler, take her in." Tyler hesitated, glancing between me and Jessica. He knew something was wrong, but finally he nodded. "Come on, Maddie." I kept my eyes fixed on Jessica as Madison pouted but followed Tyler inside, and the door closed behind them. Now it was just us. Jessica let out a sharp exhale. "What the hell, Michael?" I remained silent, simply watching her. She looked disheveled, her hair a mess, as if she'd been pacing ever since I left her alone with Connor. "Great," she scoffed. "So, now you're not talking? That's really mature." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want, Jessica?" Throwing her arms up, she snapped, "I want to talk." You stormed out like a lunatic, took the kids, and disappeared. Do you have any idea how that looks? I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Oh, I'm sorry. Does it look bad for you, Jessica? Does it seem like maybe you're a terrible wife and mother?" Her face twisted. "Michael, lower your voice, or..." He stepped closer, towering over here. "You don't get to tell me what to do anymore." She flinched for the first time, real fear flashing in her eyes. "Good," I said quietly. "You should be afraid. Not of me hurting you, but of what comes next, because I'm not just angry. I'm done." "Michael," she tried again, softer this time. "Please, let's go inside and talk." I shook my head. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is," her voice cracked. "This is our family." I let silence hang between us for a long moment, letting her squirm under its weight. Finally, I said the words I knew would shatter her. "You should have thought about that before you got into bed with another man." For the first time all night, her face crumbled. She looked like she actually felt the weight of her actions, like she finally understood what she had destroyed. But it was too late. I pulled my room key from my pocket, opened the door, and stepped inside. Before closing it, I turned back one last time. "I'll be filing for divorce when we get home." Then I shut the door in her face. The moment the door clicked shut, I exhaled deeply. I hadn't even realized I was holding my breath. My hands were trembling, and my jaw still ached, but my mind was clear. This was happening. I was done, and there was no turning back. "Who was that?" Madison asked from the bed, her little legs swinging over the edge. I forced a smile. "Just someone from the hotel, baby." "Mom?" Tyler asked flatly. I hesitated. Lying to Madison was one thing. She was too young to understand any of this, but Tyler, he saw too much. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. "Yeah, you both fought." It wasn't a question. We just had a talk. He stared at me for a long moment, then quietly said, "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" It felt like a punch to the ribs. Madison froze, her big, innocent eyes darting between us. "Wait, what?" "Damn it, Tyler." I crouched down beside them, choosing my words carefully. "Listen, I'm working through some things with Jessica, but no matter what happens, we both love you. Are you okay?" Madison's eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to break up. My heart shattered. I pulled her into my arms and hugged her tight. Oh, baby girl, I whispered, kissing the top of her head. It's going to be okay. I promise. Over my shoulder, I met Tyler's gaze. He wasn't crying or yelling, just looked tired, and in that moment I knew he already understood. He knew things weren't fixable. He just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Madison sniffled against my shirt. Can we just go home now? I swallowed hard. Yeah, baby, we're going home. Tyler nodded. Good. And just like that, it was decided we were leaving. I grabbed my phone and booked the earliest flight out, a one-way ticket with no return, because we weren't coming back. Not to this hotel, not to this city, and definitely not to her. By the time we reached the airport, the weight on my chest had settled into something cold and heavy, but steady. It was over. No more pretending, no more pushing through the lies, no more waiting for Jessica to come home only to feel like a ghost in my own marriage. All that mattered now was getting the kids away. Madison was half asleep against my side at the gate, her little fingers still curled around my sleeve, as if she were afraid I'd disappear. Tyler had his hood up, scrolling through his phone, but I could tell he wasn't really looking at anything. He was processing, thinking. I didn't check my phone, not once. I knew Jessica was texting and calling, probably spiraling, but she wasn't my problem anymore. Do you think Mom's going to come after us? Madison mumbled, her voice thick with sleep. I forced my fingers to relax. I don't know, baby. She yawned, rubbing her eyes. I hope she does. I couldn't lie to her. Tyler, on the other hand, snorted under his breath. She won't. I shot him a warning look, but he just shook his head. He didn't care. We're here, Dad, Madison added, and she didn't even ask to see us. Tyler's voice was quiet but firm. She only wanted to talk to you. That said enough. I winced. He was right. Jessica hadn't fought to see them. She hadn't called me, begging to hug Madison one last time, to apologize to Tyler, to explain herself. She had only wanted to control the situation, and when she couldn't, she let them go without even saying goodbye. Madison blinked up at me, confused. Mommy still loves us though, right? My throat closed up. Of course she does, I murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She always will. Maybe that was true. Maybe Jessica did love them in her own way. But love wasn't enough. If it were, we wouldn't be sitting here, waiting for a flight back home without her. A flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom. Our plane is boarding. Come on, I said, standing and grabbing Madison's small backpack. Let's go home. Tyler didn't say anything, just nodded. And as we walked toward the plane, something inside me felt lighter. For the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't just leaving Jessica behind. I was taking my life back. The flight was quiet. Madison curled up against my side, her tiny body rising and falling in deep, innocent sleep. Tyler had his earbuds in, staring out the window, but I could tell he wasn't really listening, just watching the dark sky stretch over the clouds. I sat there, staring at the seat in front of me, replaying every moment of the last 24 hours like a movie I never wanted to see again. The way Jessica's face twisted in annoyance when I caught her, the way she made me feel as if it were my fault, the way she let us leave without even saying goodbye. I clenched my fists and forced them to relax. It didn't matter anymore. We were going home, even though home wasn't home anymore. The moment we stepped off that plane, everything felt different. We landed in the early morning, the sky still tinged with gray, and as I loaded the kids into the car, the drive back was eerily quiet, as if even the world sensed something was broken. When we pulled into the driveway, Madison stretched and let out a sleepy yawn. Mommy's still at the hotel, right? Tyler shot me a look in the rearview mirror, waiting for an answer. I took a slow breath. Yeah, baby. Madison nodded, satisfied. Okay, I'm going to make her a card for when she gets home. Tyler looked away without a word. I unlocked the front door, and the emptiness inside hit me like a truck. The house was unnervingly still, as if it knew Jessica wasn't coming back. Madison kicked off her shoes and ran to the living room, already rummaging for crayons. Tyler walked in slowly, his eyes scanning the space like he was seeing it for the first time. I dropped my bag by the door and exhaled deeply. Then, before I could stop myself, my eyes landed on the kitchen counter, where Jessica's coffee mug still sat from the morning she left. It was cold and untouched, a stark reminder of the life we once had. Tyler must have caught my gaze because he scoffed quietly. "Guess you don't have to make her coffee anymore." I swallowed hard. "Tyler, it's fine," I muttered as he headed toward the stairs. "I'm just going to go to my room." I let him be. What could I possibly say? That it wasn't fine, that I wished things were different, that I wished against all logic, that Jessica had been a better liar? I closed my eyes for a moment, ran a hand over my face, and sighed. Then I turned to Madison, who was scribbling furiously on a piece of paper. "Daddy, how do you spell love?" Her voice came out in a small, hopeful whisper. My throat tightened. I crouched beside her and brushed a curl from her face. "Baby." She grinned and carefully wrote each letter in big, uneven handwriting. Underneath, she added, "Lovey." I had to look away. I couldn't bear it. I just couldn't do this right now. Not when my little girl still believed her mother was coming back. Not when I wasn't sure how to tell her the truth. Not when I wasn't even sure what home was supposed to be anymore. The house was too quiet, unnaturally so. Tyler was holed up in his room, door closed, probably texting his friends about how our family had exploded overnight. Madison sat at the kitchen table, tongue poking out in concentration as she carefully colored in the heart next to the word Mom. And I was just standing there, staring at my daughter's perfect little handwriting, wondering how on earth I was supposed to tell her that her mother had already walked out of this family long before I caught her in that hotel room. I pulled out my phone. No new messages. Jessica had given up. No more texts, no more calls, not even a flimsy excuse. I don't know why that hurt more than anything else. I had spent years choosing her, choosing our marriage, choosing our family. And the moment she realized she couldn't talk her way out of this, she stopped choosing us. "Are we still together, Daddy?" Madison's soft voice snapped me back. I looked down into her big, round eyes, so full of trust. "When's Mommy coming home?" My chest felt like it was caving in. How do you tell a 6-year-old the truth? How do you say that the woman who tucked her in at night, who kissed her boo-boos, who promised she'd always be there, isn't coming back? You just can't. I crouched beside her and gently brushed her hair. "Mommy's gonna be away for a while, baby." She frowned. "Why?" I swallowed hard. "Because sometimes grown-ups don't get things right, and when they make mistakes, they have to figure things out on their own." She considered this, her little fingers tracing over the heart she'd drawn, then asked in a small voice, "But she still loves me, right?" My breath hitched. "Of course she does," I murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "She always will." Maybe that was true. Maybe Jessica loved them in her own way, but it wasn't enough. Because if it were, we wouldn't be here, waiting for a flight back home without her. My throat was too tight to speak. "Okay," Madison said finally, "then I'll save this for her when she gets back." I nodded, though words failed me, my throat constricting with each beat of regret. She had no idea that the card she just made would sit on the counter for days, weeks, even months. She wouldn't know that every morning she'd rush downstairs, expecting to see her mom drinking coffee at the table, or that one day she'd stop asking altogether. One day, she'd forget she ever made that card. And that thought broke me the most, because no matter how much I hated Jessica for what she did, I hated that she could still break our daughter's heart without even being here.